Derral Eves is one of the world's top YouTube and online video marketing experts. His book, The YouTube Formula, which is how I first discovered your work, Derral, provides great perspective and is a very good book. Derral has helped generate billions of views on YouTube with clients such as Red Bull, NBC, ABC, Adobe Software, The Piano Guys, Studio C, American Enterprise Institute, and many more. Derral has been featured on Good Morning America, The Today Show, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, ESPN, Forbes, Adweek, Christians Today, World Religion News, and many other news media outlets. Derral is also co-founder of The Chosen, the multi-season series about the life of Christ, and the highest crowd-funded TV series or film project of all time, which has so far put out 3 seasons. First and foremost, it says on your website, Derral's the loving husband and father of 5 children. While he truly loves all things YouTube and works tirelessly to remain a leading authority in the industry, everything he does is secondary to his role as a family man. That is just one of the coolest things I've seen on a website, Derral. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, excited to be here. Anytime I can talk YouTube and strategy, I love it. So I'm grateful to spend some time with you.
Well, you are one of the pioneers of YouTube. Tell us about how you discovered it and built a business around it and have helped many others to do the same, and ultimately wrote the book, The YouTube Formula. Was there kind of a eureka moment, or was it more of a slow build towards discovering something that you felt strongly about and were passionate about and also had a lot of talent for?
Yeah, it actually started at a young age for me. I had my uncles invite me to the movies. It was a new movie coming out I was really excited for, and my grandma didn't want them to go, but they already watched it like once, and they, like, you don't spend money twice on a movie. But they were going to take their nephew, Derral, to it. And we went to that movie theater, sat down, and it was a really, really engaging moment for me. It's the first time I saw Empire Strikes Back. And there was just these elements in the film that really spoke to me. And ultimately it was a literally a life moment where, I can look back at that and really see my career go forward, because I got obsessed and I knew I wanted to do something in film and television. I knew there was something there that I wanted to do. I was very young. And then later that year, there was an ad campaign for Wendy's, the Where's the Beef campaign, which is, some hilarious grandmas trying to figure out where the patty is on these big old buns. Very, very hilarious. And I saved up all my money for the paper route so I could buy a VCR so I could record the funny commercials that were for Wendy's and then also Dunkin' Donuts, Fred the Baker. And I wanted to share with my friends, and we could talk about it. Just like I just wanted to more see their reactions of it. And so at that moment, I became obsessed with ads. I became obsessed with content. And this is at a very young age. And then the Super Bowl hit. And this is probably the most pinnacle moment for me. This is 1984. And Ridley Scott, who's an amazing filmmaker, did an ad for Apple computers introducing the Macintosh. And it was so disruptive. And it was so, in conversations, did you see that ad? Did you see this? And people were talking about how disruptive it was. And I'm like, that's it. I'm making Super Bowl commercials. I know exactly what I want to do with my life. And then I just started to go very, very specifically on knowing the ins and outs of marketing, the ins and outs of ads, specifically for the ad campaigns that actually happened on the Super Bowl. I was very, very closely watching how people connect with content and why. I used to carry a notebook when I was a kid and see who liked, which different ads on the Super Bowl. And I noticed that the Cowboys liked the Budweiser commercials, and, people like these other type of commercials. And, I started to see these patterns, and ultimately went through high school. I put my life on hold for a little bit, and I went and volunteered for 2 years, did a mission trip for my church, and learned more about me. And then I came back, and I was set. I knew exactly what I was going to do, which was do Super Bowl ads. And so I went through school and got my degree in marketing and advertising. And my senior year was very pivotal for me, because I had 2 offers to join 2 ad agencies. One was in LA, the other was in Chicago. And both of them worked with majority of their clients worked as ads in the Super Bowl. So I had my vision. I had everything there. Now, this is where life gets interesting. And it actually goes back to the bio that you just read or just read on my website. That's when I found out I was going to be a dad. And I literally saw the world differently at that time. And I was thinking, you know what? I know my heart and dream is to go away and do these Super Bowl commercials. But I want my kids to have a really amazing relationship with their grandparents. And if I move away, they're never going to know my parents and my wife's parents very well. And then two, I want their best friends to be their cousins because family is everything to me. And so I talked it over with my wife, and we decided to forego, continue my dreams with ad agency that does Super Bowl commercials. And I just live locally. And I actually started my own agency locally. And I kind of pushed that dream aside until about 2005. And in 2005 is the first time that I was able to see YouTube for the first time. And I just thought it was super disruptive because, you could actually play a video and it didn't have to buffer to the end. It was like one of the most exciting things. And then I realized that, they had Webmaster Tools that was in there, and then you could actually embed these videos on websites. And I'm like, this is going to be the best thing ever. And so I went all in, wanted to, my love and passion for ads, my love and passion for video. Here I had a platform that I could broadcast myself. And before you know it, I was able to realize that ultimately I didn't want to make Super Bowl commercials. I thought I did, but I actually found out what that was. I just couldn't figure out what that X factor was. And it was, I wanted to create content that people would actually talk about, that it have conversations after they watched it. It would transform their life after they watch it. And ultimately that led to literally doing some of the biggest ad campaigns in the world. As executive producer for the Squatty Potty pooping unicorn ad. And it did a lot of money, but it was a really, really disruptive ad in so many different ways. And then two, I would take on projects very specifically, for my clients. And it was like literally using the medium of video to really impact people and to really have these conversations of where they actually seen something that engaged with them, that they found value, that they wanted to share with others. And that created kind of like this feedback loop of more people finding out about it. And before you know it, I got 91 billion video views on YouTube. So that's kind of how I got started there, Kevin. But ultimately, for me, the passion was early. And then I just realized what that truly meant. And then I found a platform that was built for it. And so that's kind of where I kind of staked my claim and literally wanted to become the best in the industry and really help creators, brands, and businesses really leverage YouTube the right way.
Well, it's interesting because while the world has changed a lot since you saw that Super Bowl ad, got started in the industry, life intervened and you made some decisions that maybe changed where you were going to live and you thought it would affect things, but still you can kind of pull that string through kind of where that early interest was, even if, so I think anyway, for young people, it's just really interesting. I'm sitting here today and I don't know what I want to do. I'm not sure what I'm interested in, but there may be more there that projects to where you go than what you actually realize.
Yeah, no, I mean, I talk to a lot of people over the course of what I do. And I think this younger generation, as soon as they understand who they are and it's really easy for them to know what they want. Let me just give you a perfect example. So I had this consultation call just a couple days ago with a 16-year-old. Okay, this 16-year-old started on YouTube, was really, really aggressive for the last 5 months, got over 3.1 million subscribers in 5 months. Okay, almost 1 billion video views in that amount of time. And he's 16 and he wanted to really leverage it the right way. And so I'm all having these conversations with him. And keep in mind, he understands the mechanisms of YouTube and audience development. He grew up on this. He's been watching YouTube, his whole life. And we started to look at his corporate structure. He actually had 4 employees already at 16 years old. And they were very, very specific of what they're doing, right? And then two, I says, look, I go, tell me what's your biggest hesitation to refining or doing your videos better. And I gave him kind of a punch list of things. And he goes, to be honest with you, school. He goes, I'm still a sophomore in high school, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I get that. And I says, I'm not advocating that you drop out. And by no means am I doing that. But you made more money in a week than your mom and dad made all year. You can afford to hire a tutor to come in, and there are online programs that you can actually accelerate through high school and not get a GED, but actually get a high school diploma. And he goes, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. And so ultimately, that was a couple months ago. I just got a text. He's going into a senior year. He was a sophomore before. He was able to accelerate that. He'll probably be graduating come the fall. And for me, that tells me that, yeah, there's a lot of kids out there that might not know the path that they're going on, but those that do, I'm telling you, now they're seizing opportunities, and they're seeing it in a unique way that the older generation wouldn't necessarily go after, because they just doesn't connect the dots with them, and they're actually seeing this opportunity that's just really at their fingertips.
Well, I think you helped him make an important flip, and that's, what do I want to get out of high school versus what does high school want to get out of me? And you flip the script, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I ought to graduate a whole lot sooner.
Yeah, that's coming from a guy that I needed to get a college degree just for the piece of paper so I could go work for an ad agency. I got a 4-year degree in 2.5 years. So it's like, I just want to get things done. I don't like to mess around. It's like, if it's that important, yes, let's do it. But ultimately, if it's just like checking it off your task box, I guess that's what I did at that time too. So.
Well, with another professor here at Iowa State University, we had the same conversation a year ago at a conference in front of people, speaking about the really entrepreneurial young people, like the young guy you're talking about here. And it's like, do they need something out of university? And the answer is, quite honestly, oftentimes no.
Yeah,
I
think the only thing from my experience, and I went to Southern Utah University, and they did two amazing things for me. Number one, they catered my curriculum around me, and they didn't hold me back. Instead of saying, no, you can't do that or whatever, they literally did that. And then two, they were connected in the industry. That's how I actually got those interviews, and then ultimately landed an opportunity to go work for the company. Now, I didn't take the opportunity, but they were extremely connected in that realm. And I do believe the next iteration of education should be, it's almost going back in time where you have a master and a journeyman, coming together. So someone that's like literally been in the business for a long time, and they kind of help these new people coming into the industry. And so that's something that I do. I'm a firm believer of it. I do mentoring, and I'm helping content creators really navigate and know the things that caused a lot of pain for me, and I want them to overcome it and see the bigger opportunities. And that's why I take that super seriously. And I think education as a whole, it does need to modify more to the personal development of the individual, instead of just checking something off because that's what you need to graduate. I just don't think that, and this is just my own personal thing. I think I had a difficult time in school because I felt like I was being held back. Not I was being held back because I was dumb. It was just like they weren't giving me enough, and then they would waste a lot of time instead of making it super efficient for me, right? And I can tell you that if my reading assignments was around Star Wars, I'd read every freaking book. But no, I had to go read literature that like I don't even remember today, and do a book report on stuff I don't even care about, instead of really, honing in what's the skill and tactic that you're trying to portray, and is there a vein of interest in this child to take them where they need to be. And so I just think that things are transforming at a rate. I think YouTube is one of the best places for education from my point of view. It's like you can get college, like literally you can learn how to code from Harvard or Stanford. They have the whole curriculum online, and people are improving their skill set by really good instruction from the right people. And so anyways, there's my rant for the day, Kevin.
It's really good stuff. That pressure by institutions, whether it's school or anything else, to conform, like it sounds like it did to you when you were in school. It sounds like you had the personal wherewithal, or maybe had some mentors of your own that were like, okay, Derral, this is maybe the way you're wired, and like it's okay that you'd rather read something other than what's being assigned, or like to go faster than what they prescribe. Where do you think that came from? for you?
I think it was kind of innate in me. I just see the world a little bit differently than most people do. Like if it doesn't functionally make sense for me, I have no motivation. I have to see it be functional. I'm a very functional person. And so if there's something out there that there's the dots are not connected, it's like a waste of my time. And so I think that's the whole thing is that's kind of how I approach the world. And then two, it helps me really navigate life in a unique way because you have the institutional way of doing things, and I like to be disruptive. I like to think, well, is that really the best way of doing it? And they might say, well, yeah, I mean, it's been done this way for 50 years. I'm like, well, okay, a lot has changed in 50 years. People's changed in 50 years. Like there has to be a new disruptive way of looking at it. And so I always like to look at the problem through the lens of today. And it usually just like if I focus like 95% of the my time on the problem, it just all the solutions come. And that's where I've been able to have a lot of success is because I'm seeing things that most people won't see, and then I'm trying to be disruptive in ways just naturally that's needed. Now, is disruption always good? No, that's not always the best thing. It's just trying to find that balance, so that you're not always creating chaos. I mean, you have to have some consistency in the things that you do. So
yeah, it depends on the seat you sit in, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, speaking of the last 50 years, the way the average person today takes in content, whether video, audio, or written, has changed a lot, a lot since even YouTube was founded in 2005. Or I read in some of your history that you did your first programming on an Apple IIe, gave me a flashback. It dates me as well. I was a 2C, so
there you go.
A little bit earlier. But it made a big difference in my little school in the middle of nowhere to have access to that. So, the internet, mobile phones, improvement in bandwidth, a number of factors have combined to create this real significant change. And you're kind of riding the wave of that, in my view, at least. How do you think about that tide of change and how it continues to roll out over the next 5-10 years, whether you think about how it affects what you do or those people that you coach, whether they're 16 years old or somewhere else in their career?
I think when you actually see what I focus in on, I don't really focus in on technology, believe it or not. I think technology is there to assist us. It's a great tool to enhance what we're doing. But it's more about connection. And so as you're very well aware, if you read my book, I'm hypersensitive on the viewer. Like, who is the viewer that you're creating content for? What are their psychographics? What are their shortcomings, their worries, their issues, things that they face every day, what they do online, what they do offline. I care about that because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I go back, 2,000 years, 4,000 years. It's always about people and their needs. And so one of the beautiful things when I was a marketing nerd, growing up, in high school, I read Abraham Maslow's paper on hierarchy of needs. Is a 1946 thing. So Abraham Maslow just did a really amazing job of explaining the different types of needs that people have. And one of the strongest ones, it's not at the top of the pyramid, but one of the strongest ones is, feeling like they belong, feeling like they can connect. And ultimately, humanity, when you take the basic needs, which is, water, shelter, food, the next rung up from that is just like a sense of belonging. So even if it's a small group or a bigger group or feel like you're a part of something, that's where humanity just tends to gravitate because they have that inner desire to connect. And for me, that's the secret of success, to believe it or not, Kevin. It's like at the end of the day, that is the secret of success, is because if you can actually be a part of those conversations that connects people, then you're actually a part of a movement. And for me, that's where I hyper focus in on that. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to sell something or if you're building a brand or you're starting a TV show or you're starting a YouTube channel. It's about belonging and that connection. And it gets them so that they feel a part of something bigger than just a piece of content. And ultimately, the technology that we see today is literally leaning towards that, where it's making the world a lot smaller, where people that are into certain things can connect with other people across the world that are into the same thing, and they can celebrate the stuff that they love together, and they can talk about, have conversations. And so that's the beauty of the technology today. And I think everything else, is going to be tools to be used to help it even be tighter and faster, from my point of view.
So what is the role of storytelling in that connection, in the sort of the people aspect and sense of belonging? I mean, I'm a longtime connoisseur, I guess, of stories. I mean, I grew up in a rural community, and the way
Yep.
that we talked about people and tried to provide lessons on living life the correct way, the way we communicated values, the way we had a sense of fun, seems to me like it was all through stories. And the sort of section of the podcast that we're in is around Walt Disney, who was a storyteller. At the heart and core of what he did seemed to me like it's storytelling. So how do you think about storytelling in that larger sense of connection and belongingness?
Yeah, I think we'll use Walt Disney as an example for this one, because I think it's a great opportunity to kind of explain who he is. So he's a creator who was a visionary, and he had this world that he wanted to create. And what's beautiful is he set forth a vision and a mission and a purpose of how everything connected. And so he's a great communicator of expressing his vision, and people gravitated towards that. They wanted to be around that. And then everything had its place. Like if you started to see when Disneyland started, it was like this vision of what he wanted to see, and this vision and the purpose behind what families can do and really enjoy. And it created this monster that we have today, which is Disney, right? But at the end of the day, it's that sense of belonging that that is around generally entertainment or mission-driven purpose content. And the storytelling aspect of it is the way that we communicate. So just giving people information of the why doesn't necessarily give you context of the important part, is the what, right? Like, what started this vision? That's where things can resonate. So like for me, when we were starting the TV project, super excited about that. It was over 6 years ago. You had my partner Dallas Jenkins had this life moment where he just basically surrendered to God and gave up, trying to make it in Hollywood, and was just gonna make content. And if it took off, it took off. If it didn't, it didn't. He was just doing short films for his church. But for me, it was building audiences and really looking very specifically on doing projects that would actually bring more light into the world and be a net positive instead of a net negative. And when I was able to see his short film, and when we met, we decided to go into business with each other. And the first thing that we did was lock ourselves in an Airbnb for 2 days to define what we were going to do, the plan. And the first thing that we did was, how are we going to tell the story to encourage people to see the vision and the mission that we're all about, which is creating a TV show about the life of Jesus Christ, that you're able to see it through the perspective of those that he called. And we want to do it true and honorable in a way that would be pleasing to God and not pleasing to Hollywood. And so we need to be able to raise our own funds to make this happen. And then ultimately be consistently, making a multi-season show that is HBO quality in the sense of production, that it's not cheesy. And so how do we do that? And so we spent 2 days of refining the message of how do we do that to not only tell the story, to get people to understand the vision and the mission and the why, and ultimately pull out the money to help fund the project. And that's what happened. That's how we actually broke the all-time crowdfunding record, is because when you actually connect with someone, and this is what I love about audience development, if you've done it right, if you've done it in the sense of you're telling the right story and that is true and authentic, it needs to be true and authentic, it's going to connect. And when it connects, people naturally want to share. People naturally say, hey, did you hear about this TV show that's coming up? I'm really excited about it. You should check this out. And that's where 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, 16 becomes 32. It's like starts to multiply until it spreads all over the world. And so ultimately that the core of it is understanding the value that you're trying to bring, what you're trying to connect with, and clearly communicating in a way that you're telling authentic stories that do connect. And there's stories that might not connect, like through, it might be more entertainment, that it might be funny or, thought provoking or whatever. It's just more of a drama or whatever. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's really helping people navigate the why they should be watching this, why should they engage with it, and see the value that's in those stories that are being told.
So you'll get a kick out of this. The first time I heard about The Chosen, it was working exactly as you prescribe. And I am a poor consumer of television, but I have watched all 3 seasons of The Chosen. But I was on the phone with a friend, and what he said was, he just mentioned that my wife is leaving town. She's helped raise some money for this show called The Chosen, and so she gets to appear in a filming of the feeding of the 5,000, and she gets and she was so excited about it. And then he says, "Oh, by the way, have you seen that show?" And I said, "No, what is it?" And he said, "You have to watch it." And he was right. When, if we can go from the Airbnb with you in Dallas, trying to just like, what are we trying to get done to when you knew you maybe were onto something or kind of on the right path, how long of a time period was that?
I would say that we were on the right path after day 2. It was like we felt like we were comfortable enough with what our clear message was, and we knew who we were going to target. We want to target people like us, and ultimately we started with 0, social following, 0 money in the bank. And we were able to build it, slowly, but consistently. And I think that's where, telling these micro stories that lead to the overall story helped out, as we were doing behind the scenes before it all started. But I would say from day 2 of, really getting it in. And then it was just more, how do we amplify it? How do we amplify it? Because it was working, it was happening. But how do we amplify it? And that's something that you analyze and adjust quite a bit.
And so your goal, if I understand it right, from the very beginning for The Chosen, was to reach 1 billion people.
Yeah, our first goal, believe it or not, wasn't that. It was, how do we get the money to fund the season?
Okay,
that was the first goal.
Okay.
And the second one was, now we got to produce what we promised. And so those are the first 2 goals that we focused in on. Once we had a season 1, we had something that, it was now getting it out to the world. And that's where the 1 billion people came into it. I'm really passionate about that, is getting multiple people watching it in their native tongue. It's really important for me. And so ultimately we're looking at ways to really get this to go outside of America and just go more international and really sweep across the earth.
At what point, was it during season 1 shooting? Was it even before that? Did you know that you could produce something that would resonate with audiences the way that it has?
It's the first time I read the script that Dallas shared of season 1. And I'm like, if what I see here in my mind and what I'm reading here, if we can actually pull this off, this is going to resonate, because it's like literally showing Jesus in a new light, where you're showing the human relationships that he had and the human side of who he is, and to the difficulties of his life in a new vein, because you're seeing it from a completely different perspective. And I'm like, if we could just pull off what I see in here, that's great. And then it wasn't until, we'd shoot it and we'd have scenes and you're like that, but you never know until you get done with the edit what you got. And it was just seeing it for the first time. And I just knew that it was going to be big. I just knew that it was more about how do we get people to watch than anything else.
Mm. So I once had a conversation with somebody, and we got to the end, and it was about an investment opportunity she was trying to evaluate. And she said, we're kind of at the end of me asking about that, but would you mind if I asked you some like personal questions? I said, fine. And anyway, her question in a nutshell was, it seems like you have fun doing what you do. Is that true? Most days that is true. And she's like, how did you plan your career, Kevin? And I said, oh, Marta, if I've given you the impression that I planned my career, I didn't mean to. I'd never thought about it before, but I said, I think more what I've had is sort of a radar for like right track, wrong track. And, in almost anything you do, there's going to be bad days and there's going to be good days. But if you have too many bad days and you're answering wrong track, it might be a time to make some decisions. So what I wondered, Derral, if whether you have any like decision rules or kind of ways that you govern how you make choices about what you do day to day and longer term. You mentioned early on making a decision over where you live and family, really fundamentally influencing how you thought about your career. So that certainly is a very important one. But is there anything else?
Yeah, I'm pretty different in the sense of how I view, like I said, how I view the world and how I view work. I gauge is it going to have impact? Like, if I'm going to put time, energy, money, resources, the things that are the most valuable to me, which is time, right? What is the impact? And is that impact, can it spread? Can it go bigger than just one person, right? And ultimately that's the decision-making power is, can I provide value to create this impact? Because is it worth my time to do that? And then two, is it what's that net positive on the world? And so that's how I look at it. I don't look at the dollar amount, never have, never will. And I'm just like, okay, what's this long-term impact that's going to have upon an individual, a community, a family, a nation, the world. And that's how I kind of gauge it. And then two, I gravitate towards more mission-driven stuff, because I think mission-driven stuff is easier to build, because people can get behind a mission and a vision behind that. And so that's kind of what I gravitate towards. And I've done that, very, very early on. I've had people offer me a lot of money to just conform and do stuff that they want and just only be in this little box over here. And for me, there's just so much they can do in several different ways that will bring impact. It could be in a small, subtle way, but it is creating impact, and it does align with the values that I'm looking to extend. So
when somebody is seeking advice, which I'm sure happens to you every day, multiple times, how do you click in and be like, okay, this is somebody who I think has the potential for impact, aligns with the values that I'm trying to operate under?
Yeah, before I really get going with a client or a student or whatever, I want to know what their finish line looks like. And I think if it's superficial and shallow, I don't know if I would want to work with them. I just don't think that helps. Like I would be motivated to help them for that. But if it's more, like I said, vision driven, mission driven, there's a purpose behind it. That's great. I think there's an opportunity, and I'll share a really good example of this. And it just kind of, it'll kind of show how I operate. So I got a young family. Well, when I say young family, teenagers and 20-year-old kids. And they watch a lot of YouTube. And a few years back, about 7 years back, YouTube was in a very different stage than it is here today. And there was a lot of people doing very deplorable things online and calling that good. I didn't call it good. I thought it was trash. And yet it was like deceiving the upcoming generation. And so here I am, pondering and praying about what can be done, because, something needs to be done. Like someone needs to stand up and someone needs to do something. And for me, it was just on my mind a lot. And being in the industry and seeing, these kids being inspired by people that aren't necessarily doing things that would benefit the world. I'm like, okay, there needs to be a change. And that's when I got introduced to a kid who reached out to me, had about 4 or 5 million subscribers, and I knew of him, and he was really, really smart, and I could see his strategy. And ultimately, getting to know his heart a little bit, he was really, really good at being goal centered. Like he's very, very goal centered, and he wasn't really into it for the money. And so he asked me where I was at. I was like in Texas, and he flew out. He says, "I'll be there in 6 hours," and I'm like, "You ain't coming out in 6 hours," which he did. And we just spent a day and a half together, and it was like really seeing what I could do. And I saw a glimpse. If I can inspire the next generation of YouTubers that people would look up to as the gold standard, then that's what I'm going to do. And I just felt that this kid would be one of those kids that could inspire change, because he was doing some stuff in his content that was like giving back and helping others and so on. And I'm like, that'd be great. I think if that's the vein. And so I went all in on helping him. He wanted to become the biggest YouTuber of all time. And, he just passed 155 million, subscribers on YouTube, and is the biggest YouTuber of all time. And he's almost the biggest TikToker in the world, and almost the biggest Instagrammer in the world, and that's Mr. Beast. But the cool thing about it is it's inspiring tens of thousands of creators to say, you know what, he does really good stuff. And I can do that too, to get the views. And I mean, he's getting 50 million, 100 million video views on a video of him doing good things by helping people that are in need. And so why not do that? And so that's kind of the way I operate, is I can see problems, and then I always can find a solution that can help me out. And in that case, that was inspiring a creator that would inspire others. And that's kind of where we're at today. So.
And you can see, I would imagine, the difference between that earlier period of YouTube and kind of maybe what it looks like.
Oh yeah, no, it's night and day difference. Like he and I, we own a business together. It's called Vidsummit, and all the YouTubers come in, and these are the top 1% of the YouTubers that are crushing in the industry. And people stop swearing, because we explain, if you stop swearing in your videos, you make more money. What? You hate money? Do you hate it? Like, and these people, some don't compromise because they like to just swear a lot, but it's like, I think at the end of the day, it is inspiring a different standard. And there was a really, really strong alternative to all the other content that's there. And then two, like all the other stuff had controversy, or they'd have other ways that they couldn't monetize. It wasn't really a sustainable business because of the way that they were doing it. And it just led to the smarter creators looking for this new inspiration. And then as new creators came on and developed, they're more inspiration because they're coming off of the inspiration that they got from Mr. Beast.
Mm-hmm.
So.
In an interview that I listened to in preparation for this, Derral, I heard you refer to what you called a Red Sea moment, or Red Sea moments, in the making and marketing of The Chosen. Can you describe what you mean by Red Sea moment, and describe one and how it turned out?
I can describe about 1 million of them. So the Red Sea moment is Dallas's wife is Amanda, and she's really been kind of the heartbeat and the soul of The Chosen. And we'd get these moments where we just couldn't go any further. So the Red Sea moments is like when Moses was leading the children of Israel out of Egypt. The Pharaoh decided, oh, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm going to go kill him. And they start going there. And God told Moses to go to this specific point by the Red Sea. And here he's hearing, the army's coming to do it. And they're looking at the sea, and they're like, okay, we're trapped. And they were at a point where they needed God, and they needed God to provide a miracle, because there's no way that they, as being human, could do anything. They were like literally stuck, and they had this destruction that was coming upon them, and so they're very desperate and then very surrendered. And then that's where Moses was, I believe, was super surrendered, that he expected a miracle, and the miracle came. And so when we talk about Red Sea moments, it's like we literally get stuck time and time again. It doesn't matter what it is. And it's that moment where we just have to pause and just wait to receive, and be surrendered, to be willing to receive. Now, that doesn't mean we give up and just kind of coast or anything. It's just like we're still looking for opportunities. But what's been interesting is at every moment that we had, this Red Sea moment, it basically would reinforce what we were trying to do. So like, to give you a perfect example of this, like I try to live very prudently, and I don't like to be in debt. I hate debt. I think debt's horrible. And so we had some principles in The Chosen that we were doing, The Chosen Company. And we produced season 1 in two production cycles. One was the first 4 episodes, and the other one was the last 4 episodes. Well, we were just getting ready to shoot the last 4 episodes of season 1, and we were like $285,000 short. And it was like, oh man, we just can't do it. It's just like, and we weren't going to go take a loan out. We just didn't do it. We couldn't cut anything back. We were just as slim as you can get. And we were just at a point where I was about ready to call my wife up and says, hey, we need to take some money out of the bank and loan it to The Chosen or whatever. And I just said, no, if The Chosen is going to succeed, The Chosen needs to succeed. And so let's just kind of have this moment that we just stop and share our need with God and see what happens. And so I kid you not, we talked about it as a team. We're trying to figure out all the stuff that's going on, and we just surrendered. And 2 days later, we get this voicemail from this accountant that was helping us, with the fundraise and stuff like that. And he says, oh, I found $285,000 that was supposed to go to you that was just here. And, I'm sending a check over right now. Like that was like literally the dollar amount. Like you couldn't make this stuff up. And it was exactly what we needed to finish the project. So, I mean, stuff like that has happened over and over and over. And I just praise God for that. But then too, I praise our team to being willing to go through, because it's painstaking at time. But if you've really turned your heart to God and says, realize, hey, it's in God's hands. We're going to do our best and we're going to make our best offering, but it's in God's hands. That's where we're able to see success. And I do applaud my partner and his wife and our team on that, because that's just kind of been the nature of what we've been doing for the last 6 years. So,
on the one hand, when I'm at least mentoring young people who aspire to the entrepreneurial, innovative, impactful lifestyle, there's a certain amount of agency that it's like, if you don't make it happen, it's not going to happen.
Yep.
And there's the other side of the coin, which is the faith, right? That you cannot do it all yourself. And if you think you can, you will be disabused of that notion in ways that you will not like.
Yeah, I think it's just more, you got to do your very best and you got to look for opportunities. But like, I think the biggest thing is realizing that if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And if there's someone that's being, kind of led to help you, they're going to come out of the woodworks. If there's someone that having an idea of how to improve this problem or solve this problem, God's going to inspire them. I just think you have to be willing to be open to receive. And I think that's the key that we're talking about here. So.
Well, I'm a connoisseur, Derral, of what's written on walls, sometimes literally, sometimes not. But, when I'm at a business or even a home, I pay close attention to what's important enough to be painted on the walls as a marker of beliefs, values, culture, and that sort of thing. Is there anything written on your walls? I can see some of your YouTube awards that are behind you.
I got YouTube mess over here. Believe it or not, right by my computer, I actually have my goals. I'm a very goal-centered person. I take every July, I kind of slow down in July just to kind of figure out where I want to be in 3 years spiritually, with my relationships and business and very specific things. And so I think at the end of the day, that's the driver for me. Not as motivated in a saying or something. I try to get the good word every morning and go through my devotional to give that to me, because God will speak to me differently. And there's not one phrase, but goals are like, for me, goals speak to me louder than anything else. And so That's what I would say is kind of written down by me.
Well, Derral, thanks again for taking the time today. If people want to follow you, get in touch with you. And
Yeah,
I will
just
put
go
a
to my
link
website. Yeah, just derraleves.com, derraleves.com, or just Derral Eves on social. So
Thank you for taking the time.
all right, thanks, Kevin.